Life doesn't ask if you're ready before it tears everything apart. One day you're smiling, the next you're questioning your worth, your purpose, and whether anyone would even notice if you disappeared. The world doesn't stop for your pain. It keeps moving while you're left picking up the broken pieces. But the people who become impossible to break aren't the ones who never suffered. They're the ones who learned how to stand while bleeding, how to smile through chaos, and how to turn every wound into silent strength. Pain has a strange way of introducing itself. It never knocks. It never asks for permission. It walks into your life, tears apart everything you thought was permanent, and then watches to see what kind of person you become. Most people spend their entire lives trying to escape pain, pretending it doesn't exist, hiding behind fake smiles, distractions, and empty words. They act like if they ignore the wound long enough, it will magically disappear. But pain doesn't disappear just because you refuse to look at it. It grows in silence, feeding on denial until it becomes impossible to ignore. The hardest truth you'll ever face is that life doesn't care how good you are. It doesn't care how loyal you've been, how honest you've stayed, or how many sacrifices you've made for people who never appreciated you. Sometimes the kindest hearts receive the deepest scars. Sometimes the people who gave everything are left with nothing. That isn't because you're weak. That's because life has never been fair. The moment you stop expecting fairness is the moment you stop giving disappointment control over your emotions. Look around. Everyone is pretending to be fine. They wear confidence like a costume. They post happiness like it's a full-time job. They laugh louder than necessary because silence would force them to hear their own thoughts. Behind every perfect picture is a battle nobody wants to admit. Behind every smile is a story that could break another person. Pain is the only language every human understands, yet everyone acts like they're the only one speaking it. The problem begins when you start treating pain like an enemy. Every scar you've ever received carries a lesson hidden beneath it. Every betrayal teaches you who deserves your trust. Every failure reminds you that success isn't handed to people who quit after one defeat. Every rejection forces you to discover value that was never supposed to depend on someone else's opinion. Pain isn't there to destroy you. It reveals everything that comfort kept hidden. People will tell you to stay positive. They'll say everything happens for a reason. They'll ask you to smile more, think less, and move on quickly. Those words sound comforting until you're the one lying awake at 3 a.m, staring into darkness, trying to understand why everything fell apart. Empty motivation cannot fix real suffering. Fake positivity cannot erase genuine heartbreak. Before you can heal, you have to admit that you're hurt. There is something terrifying about accepting pain. Once you stop running from it, there's nowhere left to hide. You finally hear every doubt you've been suppressing. Every memory comes rushing back, Every disappointment replays inside your mind like a broken movie. It feels unbearable because you've spent so much energy avoiding it. But here's the secret nobody talks about. Pain loses some of its power the moment you stop pretending it isn't there. The strongest people aren't fearless. They simply become familiar with suffering. They stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single question changes everything. Victims wait for life to become easier. Survivors become stronger because life refuses to become easier. The difference isn't luck. The difference is perspective. Every broken dream leaves behind two choices. You can spend years mourning the version of yourself that no longer exists, or you can build someone even stronger from the ruins. Most people choose regret because rebuilding requires responsibility. It's easier to blame circumstances than to reshape your character. It's easier to complain than to transform. Pain strips away illusions. It shows you who disappears when you're no longer useful. It exposes fake loyalty, shallow friendships, and promises built on convenience. That truth hurts more than the original wound, because betrayal from people you trusted cuts deeper than failure itself. But hidden inside that betrayal is freedom. Once the masks fall, you stop wasting energy on people who were never walking beside you in the first place. Accepting pain doesn't mean enjoying it. It means refusing to let it define your identity. Your suffering is something you experienced, not who you are. The worst day of your life is a chapter, not the entire story. Every scar becomes proof that something tried to destroy you and failed. Every tear becomes evidence that you cared enough to feel something real in a world filled with people pretending to be emotionless. The people who fear pain become prisoners of comfort. They avoid risks, avoid change, avoid honesty, and eventually avoid living. They survive instead of living because they're terrified of getting hurt again. But a life spent avoiding pain is also a life spent avoiding growth. Nothing extraordinary is built inside a comfort zone. Every transformation begins the moment comfort dies. Your mind is the only place where every battle begins, long before the world ever sees it. People think their biggest enemies are failure, betrayal, rejection, or bad luck. They're wrong. The most dangerous enemy wakes up with you every morning, speaks with your own voice, knows every insecurity you've ever hidden, and whispers that you're not enough. The cruelest prison isn't made of steel bars. It's built from thoughts repeated so often that they start feeling like truth. Most people lose the fight before life even throws the first punch. One negative thought becomes 10. 10 become a habit. That habit becomes an identity. Soon they aren't saying, "I failed." They're saying, "I am a failure." That's how the mind tricks you. It quietly changes temporary experiences into permanent labels until you begin living according to a story that was never real. The world has mastered the art of controlling attention. Every day, Someone is trying to tell you who you should be, how successful you should look, what happiness is supposed to feel like, and how your life compares to everyone else's. Without realizing it, you allow strangers, opinions, and expectations to rent space inside your head without paying a single price. They plant doubt, and you water it until it grows stronger than your confidence. Your thoughts don't always tell the truth. They tell stories based on fear, emotion, and past experiences. When you've been betrayed enough times, your mind starts expecting betrayal everywhere. When you've failed repeatedly, your brain begins predicting failure before you've even started. It thinks it's protecting you from disappointment, but all it's really doing is keeping you trapped inside yesterday's pain. Fear has an incredible imagination. It creates disasters that never happen. It convinces you people are judging every move you make when they're too busy worrying about themselves. It tells you one mistake will ruin your future forever. It turns small obstacles into impossible mountains because panic always speaks louder than logic. There comes a moment when you have to stop believing every thought that enters your head. Just because your mind says you're weak doesn't mean you are. Just because it reminds you of your worst moments doesn't mean they define you. Your brain collects memories, but it doesn't get to decide your future unless you hand over control. Emotions are powerful, but they are terrible leaders. Anger promises strength while pushing you toward destruction. Fear promises safety while locking every door to opportunity. Sadness convinces you nothing will ever change, even though life has never stayed the same for anyone. If you let emotions drive every decision, you'll spend your entire life reacting instead of choosing control. Begins with awareness. Pay attention to the conversations happening inside your own mind. Notice how quickly you insult yourself for mistakes you would instantly forgive in someone you love. Notice how easily you believe criticism but question compliments. Notice how your inner voice becomes cruelest when you're already struggling. That voice isn't wisdom. It's conditioning built from years of disappointment, comparison, and insecurity. Strength isn't pretending negative thoughts don't exist. Strength is hearing them without obeying them. Confidence isn't the absence of doubt. It's continuing to move even while doubt follows behind. Every courageous person you've ever admired carried fear with them. They simply refused to give fear the steering wheel. The mind loves comfort because comfort requires no risk. It tells you to stay where it's familiar, even if familiar means miserable. It convinces you that predictable suffering is safer than uncertain growth. That's why so many people remain in toxic relationships, dead-end careers, and empty routines. They aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of the unknown. Discipline is how you reclaim control. Not because discipline feels good, but because it teaches your mind that feelings don't make the rules anymore. Some mornings you'll want to quit. Some nights you'll question whether any effort matters. Your emotions will beg for excuses. Discipline quietly answers with action. Every time you keep moving, despite resistance, your mind learns that it works for you instead of against you. The greatest victories are invisible. Nobody applauds the moment you choose silence instead of anger. Nobody celebrates the second you refuse to believe the voice calling you worthless. Nobody sees the war you win by getting out of bed when your thoughts tell you to stay down. Yet those unseen victories shape every visible success that follows. A calm mind is more dangerous than an angry one. Anger reacts. Calmness calculates. Panic wastes energy. Focus directs it. When chaos surrounds you, the person who controls their thoughts controls the situation. While everyone else is overwhelmed by noise, confusion, and emotion, the disciplined mind quietly searches for the next move, refusing to let fear decide what happens next. Failure has a reputation it never deserved. People treat it like a final destination, when it's nothing more than a brutal teacher with an unforgiving attitude. The moment you fail, the world suddenly becomes an audience. Some people laugh, some disappear, some pretend they always knew you wouldn't make it. The same voices that encouraged you at the beginning become strangely quiet when things fall apart. That's when you discover who believed in your dream and who was only interested in your success. Most people fear failure because they've confused losing with being worthless. They think one mistake defines their entire existence. One rejection makes them believe they're unlovable. One setback convinces them they're not talented enough. One broken plan becomes proof that they should stop trying altogether. It's amazing how quickly the human mind can turn one bad chapter into the story of an entire life. The truth is, failure doesn't break people. The meaning they attach to failure does. Two people can experience the exact same defeat. One decides life is unfair and gives up forever. The other quietly studies every mistake, adjusts their strategy, and comes back stronger. The event was identical. The outcome wasn't. The difference was never talent. It was perspective. Every person you admire has a cemetery filled with broken dreams that nobody talks about. The victories become headlines, but the failures stay buried in silence. You see confidence without witnessing years of doubt. You see success without seeing the nights they questioned everything. The world celebrates results while ignoring the countless defeats that made those results possible. Failure has a strange habit of exposing your real character. Success can hide arrogance, laziness, and weakness because everything is working. Failure removes the mask. It reveals whether your confidence depended on applause or on belief in yourself. It shows whether your discipline survives disappointment or only exists when life feels easy. People chase motivation because it feels exciting. Failure teaches something far more valuable than motivation. It teaches resilience. Motivation disappears the moment life becomes uncomfortable. Resilience keeps walking through storms without asking when the rain will stop. Anyone can smile when they're winning. Very few people remain dangerous after they've lost everything. There is a moment after every failure when your mind offers you two lies. The first says you'll never recover. The second says you should never try again. Those lies feel convincing because pain always speaks with confidence. It wants you to believe this defeat is permanent. It wants you to confuse temporary circumstances with permanent identity. Every mistake carries information. Every wrong decision reveals something you didn't know yesterday. Every rejection forces you to improve areas you were too comfortable to notice. The people who refuse to learn repeat the same failures until they become trapped inside them. The people who study failure turn every defeat into preparation for a better future. Comfort never creates extraordinary people. Pressure does. Diamonds aren't formed in peaceful conditions. Steel isn't strengthened without fire. Your character follows the same rule. Every challenge you're trying to escape may be the very thing building the version of yourself you'll one day be proud of. Growth has never asked for permission from comfort. The world respects results, but results are built from invisible sacrifices. Nobody sees the lonely nights spent rebuilding confidence after embarrassment. Nobody applauds the private moments where you forced yourself to continue after every instinct told you to quit. Those moments never become famous, yet they shape every achievement people later admire. Stop asking why failure happened. Start asking what it revealed. Maybe it exposed impatience. Maybe it uncovered arrogance. Maybe it proved your preparation wasn't enough. Maybe it forced you to become someone stronger than the person who first started the journey. Failure isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's redirection. Sometimes it's protection from success you weren't ready to handle. The people who mock your failures usually fear experiencing their own. Criticism often comes from those watching safely from the sidelines. It's easy to judge someone who took a risk when you've never risked anything yourself. The loudest opinions often belong to people who never had the courage to chase their own ambitions. Your greatest advantage after failure is that expectations disappear. Nobody believes in you anymore. Nobody is watching your every move. That's freedom. You no longer have to impress anyone. You only have to improve. While everyone assumes your story is over, you're quietly rebuilding without distractions, without pressure, and without needing anyone's approval. Failure burns away illusions. It destroys false confidence and replaces it with earned strength. It humbles you without asking permission. It teaches patience when arrogance demanded speed. It reminds you that success is rented, not owned, and the rent is paid every single day through effort, discipline, and relentless improvement. The people who eventually become unstoppable are rarely the ones who never failed. They're the ones who learned to collect every defeat every rejection, and every painful lesson. Then use them as fuel instead of excuses. Silence has become one of the rarest forms of strength in a world addicted to noise. Everyone wants to announce their next move, defend every insult, prove every critic wrong, and explain themselves to people who were never willing to understand in the first place. They mistake speaking for power, when real power often says nothing at all. The loudest person in the room isn't always the strongest. Sometimes they're just trying to convince themselves they matter. People will always have opinions about your life. They'll judge your failures before knowing your story. They'll question your decisions without carrying your responsibilities. They'll criticize your dreams while never having the courage to chase their own. If you spend your life responding to every opinion, you'll never have enough energy left to build the future you actually want. Not every battle deserves your attention. Some arguments exist only to drain your peace. Some people don't want understanding. They want a reaction. They provoke because your anger entertains them. They insult because your frustration makes them feel important. The moment you stop reacting, you remove the reward they've been chasing all along. Silence isn't weakness. It is control. It takes far more discipline to walk away from unnecessary conflict than to throw words back in anger. Anyone can lose control for a few seconds. Very few people can remain calm while chaos surrounds them. That's where true strength begins. Not in raising your voice, but in mastering it. There will always be people waiting for you to fail. They watch every mistake with excitement, hoping your confidence finally breaks. They expect emotional reactions, because emotional people are easy to predict. The moment they discover they can no longer control your emotions, they lose their influence over your life. Stop explaining yourself to everyone. Those who genuinely care don't require endless explanations. Those determined to misunderstand will twist every word anyway. No speech has ever changed a closed mind. Some people decide who you are long before you open your mouth. Let them keep their version of you. It costs less than trying to rewrite their imagination. Growth happens quietly. A tree doesn't make noise while its roots spread deeper into the ground. It simply grows until one day its strength becomes impossible to ignore. Your life works the same way. While others waste hours announcing goals, arguing online, and chasing attention, use that time to improve yourself where nobody is watching. Attention is addictive. The more approval people receive, the more they depend on it. Soon, every decision becomes a performance. Every achievement is measured by applause instead of personal satisfaction. They no longer know whether they're living for themselves or for an audience that forgets them the moment someone more entertaining appears. Your greatest revenge has never been anger. It's progress. Nothing confuses doubters more than watching someone they underestimated quietly become successful. No dramatic speeches. No endless arguments. just undeniable results. Success speaks a language critics cannot interrupt because evidence is louder than opinions. There is freedom in becoming less available. Not everyone deserves access to your time, your energy, or your thoughts. Every conversation consumes something valuable. Every unnecessary argument steals moments you'll never recover. Protect your peace with the same intensity. People protect their money because time and mental energy are resources you'll never earn back once they're wasted. The strongest transformations happen in private. Muscles are built during unseen workouts. Knowledge grows during lonely hours of study. Character is shaped through struggles. Nobody applauds. The world only notices the final result because it was never present during the painful process that created it. People often confuse loneliness with solitude. Loneliness is feeling empty because nobody is around. Solitude is becoming stronger because distractions are gone. Some of your greatest ideas, deepest healing, and most important decisions will happen when the noise finally disappears. Silence gives your mind room to think without everyone else's expectations competing for attention. There is something unsettling about a person who no longer feels the need to prove anything. They don't chase validation because they already know their worth. They don't argue over every insult because they understand that confidence doesn't require permission. They don't rush because they trust the process more than public recognition. Keep your plans private until your actions make introductions unnecessary. Dreams shared too early often become trapped beneath other people's doubts. Some will laugh. Some will discourage you. Some will secretly hope you quit because your ambition reminds them of the dreams they abandoned years ago. Protect your vision until it becomes too real to deny. Walk quietly while building a life that leaves people wondering how you changed so much without them noticing. Let discipline become louder than promises. Let consistency become louder than excuses. Let results become louder than opinions. While others are busy talking about what they're going to do, become the person who simply does it without asking for attention, permission, or applause. Every person reaches a moment where life leaves them with two versions of themselves. One stays on the ground, staring at everything that was lost. The other stands up, carrying scars instead of excuses. The difference between those two people isn't intelligence, talent, or luck. It's the decision to rise when every reason to quit feels stronger than every reason to continue. Life has a cruel habit of testing you after you've already reached your limit. Just when you think you've endured enough, another disappointment arrives. Another betrayal, another failure, another closed door. It almost feels personal, as if the universe enjoys watching you struggle. But pressure has never existed to entertain your suffering. Pressure exists because weak foundations and collapse before strong ones are built. Most people think strength is something you're born with. They imagine fearless individuals walking through life untouched by pain. The truth is far less glamorous. Strength is built from surviving days you never believed you'd survive. It's created every time you refuse to surrender. After disappointment whispers that you've had enough, nobody wakes up unbreakable. They become that way, one painful lesson at a time. Scars change people. They remove innocence and replace it with awareness. They teach you that trust should be earned, not freely given. They remind you that promises are easy to make and difficult to keep. They force you to stop expecting life to reward good intentions alone. Every scar carries wisdom that comfort could never provide. People often ask why bad things happen to good people. Perhaps they're asking the wrong question. Maybe the better question is, what kind of person those experiences are creating? Every hardship either hardens your heart or sharpens your character. One turns pain into bitterness. The other transforms it into strength. Both begin with the same suffering. Only the response creates the difference. There comes a point where blaming the past becomes more painful than facing the future. You can spend years collecting reasons why your life became difficult. Every betrayal, every rejection, every injustice can become another excuse to remain exactly where you are. Or you can accept that while you didn't choose every wound, you still choose what happens next. The world will constantly remind you of your mistakes. Some people will never allow you to outgrow the person you used to be. They prefer the old version of you because your growth forces them to confront their own lack of progress. The moment you become stronger, you'll notice that not everyone celebrates your transformation. Some relationships were built on your weakness. Your confidence quietly threatens people who depended on your self-doubt. Rising stronger doesn't mean becoming cold or heartless. It means becoming wiser. You stop confusing kindness with allowing disrespect. You stop mistaking forgiveness for giving endless second chances. You stop believing everyone deserves unlimited access to your life simply because they once knew you. Maturity teaches boundaries that pain had to introduce first. There is incredible power in refusing to let your worst experiences become your identity. You are not the betrayal. You are not the rejection. You are not the failure. Those moments happen to you, but they don't own you. The strongest people understand that the past explains them without controlling them. They carry the lessons without carrying the chains. Every sunrise arrives after complete darkness, yet nobody questions whether morning will come. They simply trust the process because nature has repeated it enough times. Your life follows a similar pattern. Seasons of struggle eventually give way to seasons of growth, but only if you keep moving. Nothing changes for those who permanently build a home inside yesterday's pain. Resilience isn't dramatic. Most of the time, it looks ordinary. It looks like getting out of bed when your mind tells you not to. It looks like trying again after public failure. It looks like choosing discipline instead of excuses when nobody would blame you for giving up. Greatness is rarely one heroic moment. It's thousands of quiet decisions made when nobody is watching. Some people spend their entire lives waiting to feel ready before they move forward. They believe confidence comes first and action comes later. Reality works in reverse. Confidence grows because of action. Courage appears while you're already walking through fear. Strength is discovered while carrying weight you once believed would crush you. One day, the pain that almost destroyed you becomes the reason someone else believes they can survive. The story you once wanted to erase becomes proof that broken people can rebuild themselves. The tears you hid become reminders that surviving wasn't an accident. Every scar becomes evidence that you refused to stay defeated, even when life demanded it. The version of you that rises after every setback is never the same person who first fell. They see the world differently. They value peace more than attention. They respect discipline more than motivation. They understand that real confidence doesn't come from never losing. It comes from knowing that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you have already proven you can stand up again, stronger, wiser, calmer, and impossible to break.